When I was little, we lived on Plot Creek Road. The road ran in front of the house, and the creek ran behind the house. There was our garden, and then our house, and then the cow pasture. As the creek and the road got closer, closer, closer together, and then a little tail end of land till they finally met. That little tail end of land, my daddy said, was good for nothing. Until one day a man knocked on the door. The man's name was Jack Moore, and he wanted to buy that little no-good corner of land to build a house. And then my daddy found out it wasn't good for nothing. And he sold it to Jack Moore. And Jack Moore built a house there. And that was the beginning of one of the most educational time periods in my 10-year-old life. Because you see, Jack Moore built his own house, and I helped. He didn't even have to ask. He worked at Dayton Rubber Company, 7 a.m. to 3 in the afternoon. I went to school just about the same hours. He and I both got home about the same time in the afternoon, and I would go across our cow pasture, and I would help Jack build that house. My vocabulary improved. Helping him work over there. I learned things like, batter boards and soffits. Besides those little short words, you had to use sometimes to make things fit together, right? Now, there was only one problem with Jack Moore building his own house. He worked on Sundays. And on Sunday, we would get up to go to church, and as soon as we backed out of the driveway, my mother's radar vision would focus over there. And she would see him, and she'd watch him all the way down the road, and then she would pronounce it, "He works on Sundays." Somehow that was my fault. Well, we get back home, and I would go over there to help him a little bit while she was finishing our Sunday dinner. And one day, I told him what my mama said. Because I found out if my mama talked about people, and I told people, I'd hear another story about mama. And I said, "Jack," because that's what I was supposed to call him. I said, "Jack, my mama says you don't go to church." He laughed. He said, "I'm what you might call a home Baptist." He said, "I do go to church sometimes, but," he said, "son, no matter what, I've got to get this house in the dry before wintertime." And then he said, "Come sit down over here just a minute." And we sat down. He said, "Did anybody ever tell you the church is not a place you go?" I said, "What?" He said, "No. Church is what happens when you try to live so that everybody who meets you has a better day because they met you than they could have had any other way." I went home and told my mama. She was not impressed. Well, we kept working on the house and working on the house and working on the house. And finally we got to the point which, some of you may understand this, where the inside was finished enough to move in while he finished on the outside. And they got moved in, and as soon as they got moved in, they invited us to come over there on Saturday night and have supper in their new house. We had to walk on little planks because the yard was all still red clay mud. And we got in the house and we had our supper. And when supper was over, we went in the living room and we saw the first television set we had ever seen that was turned on. I mean, we'd watched television sets in Massey Furniture Company, but they didn't turn them on up there because they knew nobody wanted to buy television, had part of the programs already used up on it. And we got in that living room, and my dad said, "Boy, stay way back, you put your eyes out, get way back, way back." They turned the lights down, and finally he turned on the television set, and we got to see Lawrence Welk with bubbles going up and snow just hanging in the air. And then we went home. Well, the next morning was Sunday, and so we got in the car and we headed out to church. We backed up the driveway, and my mom was looking over through there, and she said, he doesn't go. Jack had this big A-frame ladder, and he was up on the ladder painting around the eaves and the soffits. I loved that ladder. I had wanted, it came up like that and then it went up like that. I wanted so badly to climb on that ladder, and climbing on that ladder was the only thing he had ever told me I wasn't big enough to do. And I watched and watched and watched, and we went on to church. We came back home, and Mama's fixing dinner, and I headed over there to see if I could help. And as I went across through our cow pasture, he had moved that big ladder around to the end of the house, and he was up on the top, and he was painting, and the windows were open, and he was painting to music. The most beautiful music was coming out those windows, and up high on the ladder, he would dip in the brush, and he would paint to a phrase of music. It was just like a conductor, and the music would go, and he would paint, and he would paint. And I thought that was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen in my life. All I wanted to do was climb up that ladder with him. And about that time, his wife Ada came to the door, and she says, oh, come inside, come inside. I said, that's the most beautiful music I've ever heard. She said, it's on the television. Come in the living room, you can watch. And I went around the living room, and there through the window, he's up on the ladder, and he's painting, and right down there, the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, with the time change from Utah just right for us to watch when we got home from North Carolina church. And I watched Jack up on that ladder, paint away, paint away, paint away to the music of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. And finally the program came to an end. And the announcer said, I was watching Jack, said, this program has been brought to you by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And that's when I knew what he was. He wasn't a home Baptist. He was a Latter-day Saint. By the time I grew up, I had a string of Methodist perfect attendance Sunday school pins that would reach all the way down past my belly. And I could just hardly remember anything at all that I learned in Methodist Sunday school. But I will never forget the lesson I was taught by the world's one and only Latter-day Saint. The church is not a place you go. Church is what happens when you try to live so that everybody who meets you has a better day because they met you than they would have had any other way.